It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark. Who the fuck is Mark? Good question. The Disaster Artist stars James Franco, Dave Franco, Seth Rogen and a load of other people, and is also directed by James Franco, and is about how The Room, one of the worst movies ever made, was made. Now, if you've seen the video I did earlier this year called The Worst Movies That I've Ever Seen, you will know that I have seen The Room quite a few times and that I kind of love it. Which is why I had quite high expectations going into The Disaster Artist. And for the most part, I think the movie succeeded at what it was meant to do. One of the best aspects of this movie by far is that it does a good job in establishing the very odd friendship between Greg Sestero and Tommy Wiseau. And it also does a very good job of feeling sympathetic for the characters, especially Tommy, as their dreams are just constantly crushed and torn down right in front of them. There was also an added inspirational undercurrent to their story, as they just constantly keep getting shat on, but they do eventually find success, even if it's not in the way they were expecting. And I really liked that. I thought it was a really nice touch to their story, and it does make their story a whole lot more relatable, besides how bizarre it can get at times. And I think all of this is cemented by two great lead performances from Dave Franco and James Franco. I thought Dave Franco really surprised me here. I thought he was amazing in this movie, because I have seen him in other movies like Now You See Me and Bad Neighbours, and in those movies I thought he was fine, but he didn't really, impress me that much. But here I thought he was the best he has ever been, and I thought he did a really good job as Greg Sestero. But James Franco is easily the scene stealer in this movie. He completely disappears into the role of Tommy Wiseau. At the start of the movie, it does kind of look like Franco doing an impression of Wiseau, but all of that completely disappears the more you watch this movie, because by the time the movie was over, Franco had completely gone and all I could see was Tommy Wiseau. He gets every little mannerism just right, and I thought he was fantastic in this movie. Another thing I really liked about this movie is just seeing how The Room was made, and they've done this mostly through some very funny moments and some spot-on recreations of key scenes from The Room, which, if you put them side by side, are really hard to tell apart. They get everything right, from the crappy acting to the really out of place and shitty camera work. They get everything on point, and I really like that aspect, and it did satisfy the Room fan within me. From a filmmaking standpoint, The Disaster Artist is nothing special. There's a lot of handheld camera work utilised, and as I was watching the movie, I kind of thought to myself, this could have been directed by anyone, and it still would have turned out as good as this. But that being said, after the movie finished, I do think about it more, and I do actually think it did work for the style and tone of this movie. I still think it wasn't that great, but to be honest, with a story like this, with the kind of characters that are in it, you don't really want the camera work and the cinematography to be mind-blowing or incredibly stylish and flashy. You just kind of need the camera work to be a back character to let the main characters and the story take centre stage, which is what I think Franco chose to do in this movie. Now, my only flaw with The Disaster Artist is in regards to the final scene of the movie, which takes place during the premiere of The Room, and I completely get what they were going for. It's just that I thought it felt very forced, and kind of ruined the experience for me, as it just felt completely separated from what was a really decent and actually pretty faithful biopic. And I just want to clarify, I'm only talking about the end scene of the movie and not the two little epilogue add-ons that play just before the credits roll, because I think those two little add-on scenes are fantastic and I think they work really well. It's just that actual final scene of the movie kind of made me leave the cinema with a bad taste in my mouth. and I feel as if only if they had handled it in a bit more of a subtle way than the ending that we actually got, which kind of feels forced down your throat, I feel like I would have left the cinema feeling a lot happier and enjoying the movie a lot more. On the whole, I really liked The Disaster Artist. It was an interesting look inside the making of one of the worst things ever made, and I really liked how it showed their relationship between Greg and Tommy blossom over the years that are portrayed in this movie, and I thought from that standpoint it worked really well. It's just that final scene didn't quite work for me, which is why I'm going to give The Disaster Artist an 8 out of 10. If they had approached that final scene from maybe a different perspective, in a more subtle way, then maybe my opinion would have changed about the movie in general. So guys, that was my review of The Disaster Artist. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.